regarding Barron, and we'll open up on defense with the first three picks here, all three of the defensive picks. But do you think that they're just going to be open-minded regarding his versatility, being a nickel and then playing outside last year? They'll just play him whatever role they feel is best at the time, or do you think that nickel is going to be primarily where they're going to zero him in on?
Well, that's interesting. He's extremely versatile. He can play every position in the secondary, and it'll be interesting to see if they give him a look at the outside corner spot. I mean, Riley Moss was okay last year as a starter, slipped at the end of the year, but part of that he was coming back from a knee injury, maybe wasn't quite the same late in the season. So, that'll be interesting to see if he'll compete for an outside spot. But if he's the nickelback, let's not forget that Jaquan McMillan has been a very steady nickelback for them the last 2 years. So all of a sudden, if you put Barron at nickel, I mean, what are you doing now with McMillan? So I think they're going to put Barron where they believe he can provide them with the best overall strength in the secondary.
And should be good competition, which is always what you want. That means that Moss and McMillan will have to, because you got to believe maybe they're competing in a way with each other, even though it's not the same position. It's, hey, whoever could look like a starter that should be on the field more, well, that's where Barron will go the opposite way. That sounds like that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah, and they're a team that doesn't mind, rotating in at times the other cornerback. I mean, obviously you want Surtain out there the whole time. Some teams will, they're dead set at playing their cornerbacks all the snaps, but they're willing to rotate in their cornerbacks. I mean, not just the nickel, obviously, but the other outside guys. So it'll be interesting what they do and what kind of packages they come up with. I mean, they might come up with some packages where you have all four of those guys I just mentioned: Surtain, Moss, McMillan, and Barron, and then maybe you have just one safety with that package or something like that.
Before we move out of the secondary, Hufanga was a key pickup. And what does that do to the secondary? Are they pretty set, you think? Are they pretty happy with the overall look of the secondary starters and the bench?
Well, he's expected to move in. I mean, he was a first-team All-Pro 2022. He's expected to move in as the starter at safety opposite Brandon Jones. I mean, it's kind of a similar situation maybe at safety. I mean, I mentioned Riley Moss. I mean, he was okay. And PJ Locke, I mean, he also was okay. And, maybe that's even be nice. He struggled at the end of the season, really had a tough outing in the playoffs there against Buffalo. So, they're about competition, getting better. And it'd be interesting to see what happens with PJ Locke. I mean, I assume he'll be the number 3 safety. There was some speculation after they picked up Hufanga that, maybe PJ was on the hot seat. We'll have to see. He makes a pretty good salary, but it's all about competition in training camp. I mean, Locke's a competitive guy. He was the starter, and in his mind, he's probably thinking, I want to stay the starter, although obviously getting Hufanga, that's going to be very difficult for him.
Yeah, definitely. And there's still 4 more draft picks that'll be fighting for playing time. Mathis, Abrams Drain, Skinner, and Turner Yell. So we'll have a lot more on this when we talk again right around training camp and the preseason when we take a look at the Broncos for the 2025 season. Okay, so let's stay on defense. And as far as the edge is concerned, that's really where they went with their next 2 picks, a defensive lineman, and it looks like a linebacker, especially based on the size of the two, which are completely different. Savion Jones is like this, imposing big guy. What is he, like 6'5", 280? So he's a lot different makeup than is Q Robinson. who really excelled on special teams at Alabama first, finally became a starter last year. So he's still a little bit raw, but he's also coming off an injury.
Yeah, these are guys for the future. These are insurance type of guys. They've got a number of key defensive players with 1 year on their contract who will potentially get extensions. But let's just say, let's start with Jones. John Franklin Myers has 1 year left on his deal. He wants an extension. If that doesn't work out, I mean, Jones could be a future guy who moves in at the defensive end spot. That's where they peg him in the 3-4 defense. And then you've got Robinson, who you mentioned. I mean, let's just say Nick Bonito, who wants a lot of money in an extension. Let's say something doesn't work out there and he's not on the team the year after, in 26. Then you've got, Robinson to come in for extra depth. But in the meantime, Robinson's a very good special teams player. So he seems to be a guy that, very well could be active as a rookie playing on special teams. But Jones seems like a guy who I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a lot of inactives as a rookie.
Did you hear anything regarding when Jones was selected? Because our lads really looked at him, which is no surprise, based on size, as more of a 4-3, hand in the dirt type of edge guy. That's not what Denver plays, even though the size is fine. He could play anyway. But was there did they mention anything regarding a specific role that they have for Jones?
Well, they said flat out, George Payton, we consider him a defensive end in their 3-4 alignment. So,
okay,
a lot of people characterized him as an edge, and an edge for the Broncos is as an outside linebacker, but they're not looking at him.
Too big. Yeah. All right. And Robinson, have you heard anything regarding his health? Is he going to be ready, good to go? Has he participated at all yet?
Yeah, I think he had the elbow. No, he said he's doing fine and that sort of thing. So
okay,
yeah. I mean, he looked pretty good during the one rookie minicamp practice that we were able to watch a couple weeks ago.
And before we move over to offense, there's one guy, I believe, just one. No, there's a couple of guys actually out of all the UDFAs, and they're in the teal here on the Arled's depth chart. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Arled's, just want to remind everybody, one of the great assets here that I have, that being Chris, of course, being able to interview him and talk about the Broncos and their draft picks is because a lot of what I gather here, I'm going to be using to put into the Arled's 2025 draft review guide, which will be out in a few weeks. So we'll have a link in the description of the on-demand videos. You can check that out. And again, it should be coming out the last week of June. So look out for that. Denver is one of the teams I'm responsible for. All 32 teams will be in here. A little bit of a synopsis on the draft picks, as well as key free agents and UDFAs. And that's why I bring up here with those UDFAs on defense, a couple of them stick out to me. Walker, the edge from Missouri, and Reed, the linebacker from Utah. Those were a couple of guys in the draft process that I thought, who knows, maybe they're draftable kids. But Walker was the one especially that stuck out to me. Have you heard anything at all regarding any of the defensive players that they signed after the draft?
Well, yeah, I concur with you fully on Walker. I had a chance to talk to him the day after he committed to them, the Sunday after the final day of the draft. And he's really excited about coming to Denver. He had 9.5 sacks this past season for Missouri. He got a nice little signing bonus. And he's a guy that they certainly want to develop. They already have a lot of depth at the outside linebacker spot, but they were certainly intrigued by him. Jamar Cain came out to Missouri's pro day in March, and he personally worked out 3 players, and 2 of them they ended up signing as undrafted free agents, that being Johnny Walker and then Christian Williams, defensive lineman. So they're coming in from Missouri. They like those guys. And then you touched upon Kareem Reed. I actually talked to him at the Combine. A lot of people thought that he was going to be a late draft pick, and he got a nice signing bonus too. And there's, quite a pipeline from Utah to the Broncos. A lot of Utah players on the Broncos. I mean, last year they had, a couple of rookies, Jonah Ellis, Devon Vele. You've got Garrett Bowles, and last year they had Cody Barton. He's gone now. So there's a good run of – they did draft a Utah guy as well, tight end Caleb Lohner in the 7th round. So there seems to be a bit of a Utah to Broncos pipeline there.
Yeah, Jonah Ellis last year. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, location-wise, that's just the way it is. You got the geography. You hear a lot more. It's a lot closer. You can go to these games a lot easier than you can go if you got to travel to the East Coast. So, yeah, and there's enough players all over the country that it does make sense if you zero in on more of the local guys. Okay, sounds good. Let's now turn our attention to what they did on offense in the draft. Let's start with Harvey, of course. We talked a little bit about him already, but the fact is, I mean, the thing with Harvey, he's got good speed, a little bit undersized for the position, and that's also probably one of the reasons he's not considered like a really good pass blocker. But there's also a lot to like about him, especially, no surprise, he's got excellent hands. And there's no way Sean Payton and the Broncos are drafting a running back if they're not capable in the receiving game.
Well, that's actually the biggest concern about him is his hands. He didn't catch a lot of balls at Central Florida, but they think that he can certainly get up to speed as a pass rusher. But, they look at him, Sean Payton does, as maybe an Alvin Kamara type that he had there, Reggie Bush type. And Mr. Harvey is thinking big. He was talking at the at the rookie minicamp a couple weeks ago about watching film with Sean Payton. They're watching old Reggie Bush and Alvin Kamara highlights, and he basically told the media that his goal is to be better than those guys. So we'll see what that happens. But they were very, very pleased to get him at number 60 in the 2nd round. Of course, I asked George Payton if you were so excited about him, why'd you trade down twice and not take him at 51? And he said, well, the teams ahead of us didn't need running backs, but of course, anybody can trade up into the draft to take a running back. So,
sure.
They liked him a lot, but there probably were some other running backs they liked as well. If not, they would have jumped on him at 51 and not traded down twice.
Yeah, actually, our lads had him rated as a potentially a 3rd or a 4th round anyway. So I guess maybe that was where most of the consensus might have been, which is probably why Denver felt pretty good that he'd be there in the 2nd round, even if they had to trade down a couple of spots. And by the way, you made a great point regarding the fact that, even though that's why scouting is so important, and that's why, of course, you should always make sure to order the Our Lads Draft Guide, because it shows you that even though he doesn't get an opportunity enough because I would have looked at that just for myself. If I'm just looking at, because I did Denver, obviously, in the draft guide. And so I was actually looking for guys without the scouting information based on just stats. All right. Who are good running backs that fit Sean Payton? So I was going over, I even named like 5 guys that could draft based on just stats. Harvey wasn't in there because he didn't have the big stats in the receiving game. But according to our lads, he really has excellent hands. So even though he doesn't get an opportunity a lot in college, he's got the hands. Now it's just a matter of whether or not they're going to throw to him, which they will, a lot more than he got as far as college reps in the receiving game. So anyway, that's my rant. Okay, or my spiel. Let's now talk about Pat Bryant. Speaking of other players that were drafted a little earlier than expected. Now, Pat Bryant is a receiver that I actually thought was going to be a sleeper because our lads graded him in the 6th or 7th round. And I said, hey, I like this kid. I've seen a lot of Big Ten football, being a Michigan and Rutgers guy. So I really liked the kid. Thought, wow, this is going to be a good pick for someone. Little surprised to see him go in round 3. But, hey, the bottom line is, the Broncos liked him. They picked him where they wanted him. I know he doesn't have great speed. He only ran a 4.61 at the combine. But he's got excellent hands. He gives them a really good possession type receiver. What did they tell you that they liked him so much that they, were able to pick him maybe a little bit earlier than people thought?
Well, that's another Sean Payton special there. He loves big receivers. I mean, last year they drafted Devon Vele, who we touched upon earlier, in the 7th round, and he had a pretty darn good rookie season for a seventh rounder. And now, after he was selected, Peyton compared him to Michael Thomas, who he had and caught a whole bunch of balls for him in New Orleans. I mean, that's pretty steep comparison to a guy who, before he got hurt, was perhaps the top receiver in the league. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, another big receiver. They've got Cortland Sutton as well, big receiver, which Sean Payton likes. And, I mean, we'll see if they bring him along slowly. I mean, they got some decent receivers on the team last year. Franklin and Veli as rookies. Troy Franklin, looked pretty good, and Marvin Mims really started to come on. So there's a lot of competition for that number 2, number 3 type receivers behind Cortland Sutton. So it'll probably be difficult for Brian as a rookie to be in that mix, but he should definitely be on the 53.
Has Mims, and again, we'll talk more about Mims in a couple of months, but has Mims, in your mind, already turned the corner and to become that maybe this season there's a lot of expectations, not hope, but expectations that he's going to break out?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it took a long time from the standpoint that he really started off well in the 2023 season as a rookie from a receiver standpoint, and then they basically stopped throwing to him, and it became a weekly question for the rest of that season. And then Sean Payton in 3 different states last year said, we're going to throw the ball more to Mims. He said it at the owners' meeting in Florida, said it at the combine in Indianapolis. He said it in Colorado, of course, but they didn't throw to Mims for the first half of the season. And then finally they started getting him the ball. I mean, it was kind of a gradual type thing. They started kind of from scrimmage. They started lining him up at running back, and he got some touches there, but then he much more blossomed as a wide receiver late in the season. So it would seem to me that he's taken that step, and he's a strong candidate to be the number 2 receiver this year. And
I could definitely use that. No question about it. Okay. So let's now talk about the other, the last pick on offense, and that was the tight end out of Utah. So now this, one of those picks that, you see a lot of other talented players that might have been available that wound up getting signed. And we already talked about a couple of them, but I always find it interesting when players like this get drafted instead of signed. I'm not sure what the thought processes were there, but what did you find out about why they went ahead and used up a draft pick on Caleb Lohner?
Well, I had reported that Indianapolis was ready to sign him as an undrafted free agent if he didn't get drafted. And I'm sure the Broncos got wind of that and then took him in the 7th round, because as well as I do, you got to battle to get your undrafted free agents.
That's right.
And if you're worried you're not going to get a guy, you just draft him. So, yeah, there was some surprise from that standpoint. I mean, this is a guy who played basketball for 5 years in college at BYU, Baylor, and Utah, and joined the Utah football program as a tight end last year. And it was the first time he'd played football really since he was in 8th grade.
Wow.
And they used him in the red zone, and he had some intriguing stats. He had 4 catches, and every single one went for a touchdown. I mean, mostly short ones. And then he caught a 2-point conversion. So he put some stuff on tape, and they really liked how he looked at the Big 12 Media Day. So they considered him, an ideal project to bring along. And apparently you can only have one former Utah tight end as a project on your team, because last year they had Thomas Yasmin from Australia, who was their international player on the practice squad all of that year. But then they let him go like 2 weeks after the draft. So Lohner's the only Utah project tight end still around after Mr. Yasmin was said goodbye to. So that'll be interesting to see if he, gets a roster spot or just becomes a practice squad guy. And then, of course, if there were all these teams that loved his potential, I mean, at 6'7", if you
Yep.
put him on the practice squad, you risk somebody,
Gone.
including Indianapolis, which I just mentioned,
Yep.
snagging him away.
Yeah, because it does look like there's a legitimate opportunity. I don't know if this year will be the year, but again, like you said, he might have to be kept on the roster. That he could fight for time for that number 3 spot, maybe by the end of the year or 2026.
Well, they've got they're not going to keep 5 tight ends. I mean, they've
Oh,
got Evan Ingram and Adam Troutman, who are locks, and Nate Atkins. They love him as a blocker. He's the third guy, and
they do. Okay.
Lucas Kroll. They liked the way in 23 that he was ascending, and it was thought that he was going to play a bigger role last year, but it never really happened for him. So his roster spot's in jeopardy. So he's a 4th tight end, and then Caleb is number 5. And so somebody's got to go because they're not keeping 5 tight ends. I mean, possibly 4.
And then, by the way, before we move out of here, because we only have one more player left, that's on special teams. We spoke of the UDFAs on defense. As far as offense, there actually were several, all on the offensive line, that caught my eye. That was Mahalski, Clay Webb, and Xavier Truss. All 3 of them, I thought, could be interesting late round players to keep an eye on. They wound up getting them all. They also signed Cox and 4 wide receivers after the draft. So have you heard anything positive in any way, shape, or form regarding any of the offensive UDFAs?
Well, you touched upon Webb. They like him a lot, and Truss, they like him a lot. Both of them got good-sized signing bonuses. I actually did a story on Truss a couple weeks ago, who describes himself as a big guy from a small state. He's from Rhode Island, and not a lot of top NFL players have come from Rhode Island. But the key is they did not draft an offensive lineman, so they brought in several, as you noted, undrafted free agent offensive lineman type guys. And, I mean, Alex Pachalski, they brought in 2 years ago, undrafted, and he made the team. And then he got some starts last year at right tackle when Mike McGlinchey went down, and he looks like a solid piece moving forward. So you can find these offensive linemen undrafted.
Okay. And then we move to special teams, and it doesn't happen very often, but every year there's always going to be several kickers, place kickers, punters that get drafted. The Broncos were one of them. They get the punter from Florida, who's actually our lad's 2nd rated punter overall. So this is when you're drafted and there's no one else in your way on the depth chart, it's your job to lose.
Well, they signed Matt Hawk in March, and Matt Hawk, average punter at best, but at least they had a placeholder in case things didn't work out in the draft or signing an undrafted punter. I mean, they looked at Crawshaw as the top punter in the draft. They were elated to get him, and he showed up for rookie minicamp on Thursday, signed his contract. Friday, they told Matt Hawk they don't need him anymore. They released him, and then Crawshaw became the only punter, and he looked good at the rookie minicamp. He's looked good in OTAs. So unless something weird happens, he'll be their punter in 2025.
By the way, for Boney, is he locked in as the long snapper?
He's most likely will have that role. They re-upped him as a free agent. They gave him about $1 million of it guaranteed for this season. He had a minor back procedure, so he hasn't been practicing this spring. So they brought in a veteran guy, Zach Triner. They actually have 2 long snappers on the roster now, but Triner doesn't have any guaranteed money. So unless there's some kind of setback with Fraboni's back, or unless Triner somehow beats him out and they want to eat the guaranteed money on Fraboni, unless those scenarios happen. But I would expect for Boney to be the long snapper.
Isn't it nice in the NFL when the long snapper makes $1 million for the year? Gotta love it.